Yeah.
Yes.
So I'd like to welcome today from Global Aktion to this interview Minetu Larabas Sueidat from the camps, the Sahrawi refugee camps in Algeria. And she is with us here today to tell us about what it is like to live with Corona or in the Corona crisis at the moment where she is. And just to briefly introduce you, are the Secretary General of the National Union of Sahrawi Women, and you are also involved in are you the Vice President, I think, of the International Socialists Youth? I'm sure it will have affected your work as well as your daily life, this current Corona crisis. So maybe you would like to tell us a bit about that.
Yes, thank you very much for giving me this opportunity to share the experience that we have here in the refugee camps. As you said, yes, I was born and live in the refugee camps, and but I think that I never experienced something like the time that we are experiencing now with this confinement, and because, for example, there is no movement between the camps, and there is strict rules when it comes to social events like weddings and the naming ceremonies. All these events are stopped, so you can say that life is almost paralyzed here. People are just like really very difficult, adding to the refugee already constraints and all that struggle and challenges that Sahrawi people has to face every day with the lack of conditions. But I think this confinement really added too much to stressing, if I can say. But at least we are very lucky that so far there is no case, no confirmed case of coronavirus in the refugee camps, and really we are very grateful to God that so, because with the condition, the medical condition and everything is very really not promising. So that's what keep people really resisting, that at least we have to really be very careful so not to have any case within us, and to overcome all this issue of the pandemic together. As I said, as you mentioned, I am the Secretary General of National Union of Sahrawi Women, and the pandemic and the confinement really affected very critically our work. Many meetings have been cancelled. I had many travels were scheduled before. Lots of very important international meetings and conferences, and we were expecting a lot of visitors, people, women who shared with us their experience. They came here to train, but unfortunately, after also the coronavirus breakdown, we cancelled all that, and of course our travel also internationally was cancelled. And you can imagine how that affects, because in the end our main role is to promote the Sahrawi issue internationally and to make our voice heard, so that we can have a fair solution to our people. And also the same thing with the EUC work, that I am the Vice President of the International Union of Socialist Youth. We were supposed to have our last meeting as a presidium in the last conference that was supposed to be in Panama, also end of April, and we cancelled also that. And now we have still we have to wait until the end of all this to make this conference, so that we as presidium of the UC can give it to other new candidates, because obviously most of us are engaged in other works, but this really add to us more involvement, and so to really keep the the EUC and the work of EUC despite the end of our mandates, so yeah. So basically this is it. As I said, it's really affecting refugee camps. We are not accustomed to all this really very, very serious isolation from the world, because at least from time to time we receive visitors, we receive journalists, we receive, and now unfortunately also there is no more people coming to the refugee camps, and many other also economic impacts had, especially that some families, they have some people, for example, in Spain, their children, their daughters or sons working there, send them some money to survive, and now all that also is impossible with the pandemic. So a lot of impacts really has on the daily social life and the social, and also we used to have a lot of conferences of solidarity between from the refugee camps to our people in the occupied territories, and a lot of events that really keep us connected. And all this also is now stopped because there is a serious prohibition of any meetings that of people over 6 persons, and all this also is really very badly affecting, especially that connection and the vibrant connection that we always have between us and the people, our people in occupied Western Sahara, and even the others in the area east of the free Western Sahara and the liberated area. Also, there is no communication, no also now free movements because of this, and everyone is asked to stay in his own, in his and her own places until all this ends, and hopefully soon.
Yes, I mean, we know so often the issue of the Sahrawi independence is called a forgotten conflict. And I'm imagining that being now so isolated in the camps must make you feel that the world has forgotten about you even more, if possible.
Yeah, of course. Honestly, some people, some young people are joking about it in their social media, saying that we already we have been always forgotten by the international community. But we think that now the pandemic also reminds us of the real isolation that we have, and how vulnerable we are to be really isolated in literally like what is happening now, because we were exposed to visitors, but only some visitors who are interested in people who want to show their solidarity, or others who want to do their researches on our conflict, or it depends, and that's of course always not enough, because most of the international community, they don't know about us, they don't hear our voices, they don't show us in their mainstream media. But now also that's doubled 1,000 times, that at least those glimpses of hopes that we always receive, now everything is closed. We are really, really, literally isolated, and unfortunately that's really very, very, very not easy situation to live in. But of course we understand now. We only pray and hope that humanity will cure soon. Yeah, and that people really go to their normal life everywhere, because this is really not very easy situation to watch it in the TV and to see the news and people putting numbers before humans, like today is more, today is less, and it's like we are playing or gaming about something that is not really persons who have their own loved ones. And this is really very, very difficult, and especially also that we are now in a spiritual month of Ramadan, and we used to have, you know, our praise and lots of things in the mosques, and also all that is now prevented because of the, you know, fear and of coronavirus. And you know, that's also changed how people, because Ramadan also is very sacred month.
Yeah.
We have a lot of ritual practices, and all this is now also impossible.
Hmm.
And it's,
I think you mentioned that you have a maximum of 6 people who can gather. In
yeah.
general, what are the other restrictions that you have? Because it varies from country to country. What are the main restrictions, and how is it being handled? And are people sort of following it, and do they rally behind it, or is there some disagreement or protest? Or
No, of course, there is no disagreement or protest, but because people really understand their situations. Every Sahrawi in the refugee camps understand, you know, the health system that we have, understand that we are refugees depending on international aid, and that the health system that we have is not an ideal at all for us to, you know, to demonstrate kind of rules like this. So that are preventive measures. The main rule is that everyone stays in his home.
mm,
But of course, you know, there is some people, especially young people, this is very difficult for you to
yeah,
make them really apply this. But at least there is no movement from camp to camp. So, and people
that's
still,
closed.
you see that, yeah,
Mm,
closed. Every camp is closed. So we are in Bushdur here, we cannot go out of Bushdur.
mm,
Only for medical reasons, or the people who have own shops, they have also rules for them to go and to bring the goods, you know. That's because
yeah,
of the real. And that people, there is not a normal way, but you see some people moving from family to family, I trust you have been to the refugee camps before, and you see that we are very close, and people tend to make tea together, and we are very open, like, so it's very difficult for you really to make any strict rule. But we always you see that, especially because of the mothers and women in the families, they are very strict with their young people to not, uh, go a lot, to not to see other families, to respect this confinement until we finish. And when you see out, just go out, you see that there is some movement, like you see some one man, two men, one woman moving. Maybe they are going to the shop or something, but comparing to the normal life, it's not the movement, the real movement that we used to see. And the
and is
other
there
thing is
enough?
that,
Sorry, continue.
mm, hello.
Yeah. Um, so is there enough clinics and testing equipment and protective equipment, things like that? Is that sanitizers and
No,
all that?
testing equipment. There is no testing equipment, and also uh, masks. Like people, they have their own. Like for example, for women, Sahrawi women, they only use their malhifas, and the men, they have also the triple.
Yeah, the
Yeah,
scarf. Yeah.
so we already have some that we are used to, but it's not necessarily medically approved to be really very preventive. But I'm sure that there is some stock in the hospitals, but uh, because only so far there is no case, that's why people are still very relieved that we are so lucky that so far there is no. But I'm sure that if we heard about something, I think that people really will be rather more serious not to go out, or because honestly here it's very 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 easy to spread the virus if it happens, because the way we live, the way we interact tea is very secret. The family all sit together. We don't have all this, you know. So it's very easy, but we only pray that there is that no case will. But as I said, for example, in the union, we already closed since the beginning of this, I think the end of March, after the break, the huge break in Europe and of the coronavirus. So we are asked to not operate norm as we used before, because we always have a lot of meetings, a lot of women come to the center, it's open, and but now unfortunately we only have if I have to do something, it's at the leadership of the Polisario. It will be only myself, but it's always also with the, you know, within the rules,
Yeah.
and only if it is something necessary. And so yeah, basically it's total paralyzed.
Yeah.
Paralyzed, you know, of work and of social events, especially the social events. And I insist because, you know, people here, they only survive thanks to these social things that they think they are still having their own life, you know, within the difficulties in the camps and refugee constraints and all this. But at least they always have that hope of, you know, people laughing, people are very, you know, the women, they wear their bright clothes because there is a wedding, there is today in naming ceremony, you know, tomorrow one wife is coming to the family of her husband and they are doing, you know, small, you know, festival, or I don't know how to do, concert or something like this. It's something that's used to keep people, you know, really live, having a kind of normal life. But now all that is stopped, and the only thing that we see and heard is about this coronavirus. All the news, even our television, everything is about be careful, this is it, and even through WhatsApp. And also that brings me to another things about the schooling and children. And unfortunately this confinement affected negatively our children, because we are not like others. Although our leadership, the Polisario leadership, and the Sahrawi government, they tried their best to do some lessons in the national TV, and they are already did, you know, processing with the program for each level. But you can imagine all, you know, the grade, primary school, all the grades, first grade, second grade, and you only have a national TV to do this. And also not all the people have access to to TV in the refugee camps, and we are not like many others in other countries that they are using social media, they have a lot of other options. Unfortunately, that's impossible here in the camps, and you know the conditions. So I'm really worried about the children and all this breakout of school, that they are closed since March, and you know, and they only have, and also they are not having the freedom to play as they used to do, because at least here also they play all the day outside. And now mothers are more careful about letting them out all the day, and it's really very difficult. They are neither in schools, neither able to go out to play, and not even having the enough equipment to study through, you know, computers or other and yes, so it's really affecting negatively the children, especially the children.
Would you also say, now that you are representing also the women, is it a different experience for women and men living under this corona crisis? You think there's do you think it's different? It's special for women? Is it a different set of constraints, or are there special conditions for women under this crisis?
Yes, I think that women as men, I think it's really very difficult. And as I said, it's really very, affecting very difficulty in a very difficult way, that they are not able to, socialize as they used before, because Sahrawi women are very, known for them. They socialize a lot. They go to weddings a lot here, and also even for govern they govern almost all the local and regional governing. It's held by women, so they do a lot of work outside, so they are not that, they don't have that basic or that um, they never limited themselves to the domestic role only.
Mm.
And it's not easy for Sahrawi women to be kept all the day in the same place and in her tent, because they used to go out to go to the wilaya, to go to do something, to meet to people, or to go to weddings, or and this is really very difficult, and especially when you are sitting and the only news that you are getting is about people dying everywhere.
Yeah.
And there is, I think that most of the families, they have other peoples outside. Either they are studying in Cuba, studying in Algeria, studying in other places, and they are really worried about them. They are not with them. They always have to keep talking to them, and and they have also families in Spain, and not only the also the main. We are all afraid also about our families and our, uh, beloved one in occupied territories, because they are also under occupation, and living with an enemy is not an easy, and we are afraid that all this will,
Yeah.
you never trust when you are under occupation, and we are always afraid that they maybe use the coronavirus to, and that's.
That was going to be my next question, the political, because we see that a lot, that you have these, like the disaster capitalists are moving in and doing their work now, and everyone is thinking, how can I use this for my, political purpose? So we are also thinking about this. And I was wondering if Morocco is also using the situation somehow politically, or if how you are preparing politically for the post-corona situation, if you're thinking of that now.
Honestly, as I said, we have this fear that, but at least our people there also, they are taking their best not to. They are having their best not to go out. But sometimes it's very difficult, because they are not. They don't have permanent jobs like other. They are always discriminated against because they are Sahrawi, so they only live through daily jobs if they can. And now they cannot go outside. That have also the economical implications that are very difficult. But I'm sure they are aware of that this may be used by Morocco, and it's very difficult, because now also we hear about, but we know that there are some cases in Bushdur and in Ayun, also in occupied territories, and really that's not promising. We hope that our people will really be very, very, very careful. You live under an occupation, and that will be very easy excuse for them to inject maybe with coronavirus. And that's something we all understand, and even people here, their own fear is about our people in the occupied territories, and that this may be used to, I don't know the word, but to exactly. So, you know, to kill the Sahrawi race, or
Yeah,
to
yeah. To end
yeah,
it, we see a lot of
yeah,
countries that are also increasing surveillance, for example. So they will, you know, they will track everyone's cell phones. You know, this is normally not allowed, but they will say, no, it's so that we can track the infection, you know, the chain of infection.
yeah,
They're using it as an excuse
as
to, you know,
yeah,
to increase surveillance of everybody, you know. So that's where you need the masks to
yeah.
hide from the surveillance, the occupying powers. But I can imagine that this will be a worry for you and everyone living in the occupied territories.
Yes, of course, really, because we all have families there. I have all my aunts and uncles in Dakhla, occupied Dakhla. Only my mother came here, and she left all her brothers and sisters there, and they are, or most of them, old, but they have their children, and they always speak to us, and they are really very worried about the implication that this coronavirus may have on their life, and that it may be used as a weapon also. But we hope that the international community, if or this UN keeping this mission, that they will be aware of this. Though it's not easy to, you know, to investigate on something like this, but I hope that at least making the or letting something like this known in the media, that some regimes are, maybe they are using this, or they will try to use it, or so at least for them to know that people are understanding that something like this may happen, and this may, why not make them be careful not to go to use the coronavirus, because honestly, this is the fear that we have, especially when we see that people are now overwhelmed with the coronavirus, and for them, because it's killing in the US, killing in you know, in France, killing, so it will be easy for Morocco to say yes. Also, we have this then rate of high rate of the people dying, because we don't have the means. You have, it's also in the US, people dying in this and this. So it will be easy for any regime, especially from the uh, African continent, to especially like Morocco, to make easy excuse that because of health, because of from a system, or because that people didn't you know, didn't use the prevention measures as they used to do, or they didn't obey the rules, or, you know, easy to find any excuse, especially, as I said, that other countries were, you know, seen to be more organized, and people are very, you know, keen to rules. They have these big numbers of, you know, deaths, so why not us?
Yeah, they will use it as a cover,
Yeah, as a
both
cover,
for
and then,
more repression and maybe also to, you know, divide the access to healthcare, I guess, so that some the Sahrawis might not have the same access to healthcare. I guess that can be organized
yes, of
without the
course.
world knowing about it, I guess.
Of course, that's also another means, because this has been used many times with people who were killed or died because of bad conditions of normal, sometimes disease, but they were, you know, prevented to health, you know, care, and or even if they were given a health care, it will be not as it's used or supposed to be, and they will go from, for example, the occupied territory. They will send them to inside Morocco. They go, they leave their families that only for analysis or something, and the next day they will tell them, oh, they developed certain, you know, there's have been certain development in their conditions, and that led to heart failure or whatever, and then they find themselves, you know,
Mm.
coming back with the dead body. So this have been that we have many cases with this, but people there, unfortunately, they are afraid to really say and
Mm.
expose all this, and because they don't have the evidence also,
Mm.
but they know in the end they will tell you we are within enemy, so we cannot expect to be provided with health care or to be really treated as a normal citizens or whatever, because they know that we are struggling for independence and that we want to be an independent, so they will not give us what we want easily.
Mm. Not a lot of hope in all this. Is there anything you can see in the post-corona that where you're looking for a success or something you are working towards?
I don't know, really, as you said, there is no hope with all
Mm.
this really very depressing news we are getting,
Yeah.
and you don't want it for anyone, whatever and wherever is he, because in the end we are all human beings and we all deserve to live,
Mm.
with dignity, and that people, at least when they die within their families, and they can have the chance to tell them, to tell them goodbye. Or so a lot, we all are really feeling this sorrow that everyone everywhere is feeling, but we only think that people now understand that we all are in the same, in this together, like the same in this together, in this global issues. It's something that started in Wuhan in China, and now everyone is suffering the consequences. And we think that people will understand that they don't have to underestimate any people's struggle anywhere, because also maybe the conflict in Western Sahara, some people, they don't think it's related to them or has anything to do with them. In the end, we are all in the same planet. We are all,
Mm.
so we need peace everywhere. We need to be, and we think we saw also a lot of stories of solidarity between people, and you see in hospitals, and for example, there are many Sahrawis medics who studied medics. They are in Spain, and they are doing a lot of good things, and a lot of very promising story for some Sahrawis studying in Cuba medicine, and they are doing a lot of work in the ground. Even the International Organization of Health have spoken about them, and in their main page that there are some young Sahrawi women studying in Cuba medicine. They are helping in the community of Cuba, and with for the preventive measures of coronavirus. So I think a lot of story of solidarity
Yeah.
between people, despite their background, despite their conflict, and I hope that that sense of solidarity, and that's people need really to go out of their comfort zone, and not to only stay in their own. Maybe will be the way of life after the post coronavirus.
Yeah.
That really people will not care only about their own issues, because you cannot speak now about health system in one country that will not be affected with the other one if there is an issue. And we have seen everything now happening in Europe and in Africa and in many other continents about the issue of masks and issue of medicine. And now we are all waiting for one country to bring us the cure of coronavirus. And every brain in the earth is needed now to really do something about to save the humanity. So
Yeah.
we
Yeah.
think that will be really a good lesson
Yeah.
to everyone, and that politics is not always the solution for people. People only are human in the end. They want to live, they want to have time to, if they, we all know that death is coming. We cannot like aspire for for a world with no people dying, but at least people dying with their families, and not like counted like this. We have now 100, now is less because we have only 80. Or this is really for us is very, very, very bad things. We don't wish it for anyone. and we hope that we all, you know, go from or become stronger after this experience. And that we, as I said, live in a world with a lot of solidarity, and people really put in lives and health and education before weapons and before, because all these investments on weapons and on, you know, arms, I think if we use it to in medicine, and we will have really much more easier, you know, the ways of dealing with coronavirus now.
Yeah. I like that you're focusing on the solidarity now, because that is the only thing that will get us through, I guess, and that how this has shown the interconnectedness of us all. A lot of people saying we're in the same boat, but I think it's very clear now we're not in the same boat. We're in the same storm, but we have very different boats to get through it. But solidarity is needed, because someone on that other little rickety boat is making the vaccine or has something else, you know, that we all need.
Yeah.
So that's so I think we'll maybe end here. Do you have something more you want to say? What can we do for you apart from keep telling the story and doing our best to make sure that it's not forgotten?
Yes, of course, we only appreciate opportunities like this, and we know, I think that only Sahrawis knows that solidarities really exist, because we have a lot of good examples about the people who really came here and showed their solidarity and voiced our pain in their own countries. So we never lose hope that there is solidarity between people. This issue of the, you know, or clash of faith or whatever, we know that that's in the end is nothing comparing to humanity. And there are really people who, despite the differences between us in religion and in culture and in everything, but we all have shared a lot of experience of internal solidarity. And we only hope that these initiatives that give the opportunity to people like us to speak and to share their experience will be there also in the table. And that after post-coronavirus, I hope that people will not only focus on stories and how people in Italy or other countries have their, how were they during the coronavirus confinement, and that they really have been through difficulties. Or I think that it will be very good to really always make sure that we have the whole picture of every person around the world, because there are people here in the refugee camps who don't have yet case of coronavirus, but they all are not happy because people are dying everywhere, and they all are praying their God to really have a better, you know, better news, really, because really we are affected. And when we see that there are mass graves, it's really very, very depressing for all of us. So we hope that people know about this and really not take it for granted, because we all in the end we are human beings, and we all, you know, feel the same sorrow and the same loss. And yes, so thank you very much. And this is very good opportunity, as I said again, and only repeating such things, making news or mentioning the Sahrawi people, their stories, is very, very useful for us.
Thank you very much, Minetu. I'm going to stop the recording here. Thank you very much, and take care.
Thank you very much, Anne.
Thank you. Thank you.